this gives us an opportunity. I come from the private sector. In business, you almost have to have a mission statement. You need to establish goals. Everybody in the organization needs to understand their role in achieving that mission and accomplishing those goals. That's not what Congress is. I mean, Congress is completely dysfunctional, and part of the problem is so many bureaucrats, so many staff members, so many members of Congress, they have no knowledge of, no experience in, very little sympathy for the private sector, but even worse, they've never even been part of a functioning organization. So I appreciate, what Leader McConnell did from the standpoint of the Supreme Court. I appreciate him now that he's given us the time to go through a process as a Republican conference of the Senate to develop a mission statement, understand, this is the direction we need to take this country. Here are our goals. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I think our primary function must be at this point in time to effectively counter the policies and ideology of the radical left that is destroying this country. Democrat governance is destroying America, and we need far more effective counterbalance from Republicans in Congress, including the Senate.
And I mean no disrespect to the senator, but he wasn't terribly popular, and also he's he was criticized for not being a very effective communicator either. So you see this as an opportunity. There's a short list of potential successors that have been discussed in recent days. They include Texas Senator John Cornyn, North Dakota Senator John Thune, and Wyoming Senator John Barrasso, Florida Senator Rick Scott, and Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, also Montana Senator Steve Daines. Senator Cornyn has already officially announced his bid. In your opinion, who should become the face of the Republican Party at this point in the Senate, and what is that message? You laid out kind of in a broad stroke, but if you had to tell the American people what is it that person really should focus on, what would that be?
Well, first, let me say I don't envy whether it's the Speaker of the House or minority or majority leader their task. It's not easy herding cats, so it's a very difficult job. From my standpoint, I want to drive a process. I'm trying to lead that process of developing that mission statement, those goals, so that in that process, leaders will emerge. Obviously, I back Rick Scott, who has a phenomenal background. He was raised in poverty, really is a self-made man, ran the largest hospital corporation of America, successful governor of Florida, and now is a real ally in the Senate. He has certainly led. He's shown his ability to lead. But again, I want to go through that process. I don't want us to immediately turn to a popularity contest and start counting votes. You have to go through the process of figuring out what direction now is our conference going to go into. I'm certainly looking for a leader, a more collaborative process. There are a lot of smart people in our conference. Their skill sets have not necessarily been used very well in the past. So a more collaborative governing model for our conference, but again, a very strong mission statement that adheres to the principles that we need to promote and defend freedom, free markets, the Constitution, while at the same time providing, an effective counter to the destruction that is occurring under Democrat governance.
And do you believe the next leader needs to be more conservative than McConnell? Is that somebody that you would really be looking for?
Well, certainly more fiscally conservative. Since Leader McConnell became leader, he started out, we were less than $10 trillion in debt. Now we're approaching $35 trillion. I think that's one of my biggest issues with Republican conference just in general is we have not had strong fiscal conservatives at the helm that are really trying to hold the line. Here's an example. Over the last 4 years, we've gone from $4.4 trillion in spending to $6.4, and even worse, we've increased other mandatory spending. This isn't Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, but other mandatory spending by $700 billion a year in just 4 years. The entire discretionary spending amount is about 1.6. That's all we really appropriate. So the mandatory spending is a real problem, more than 70% of our budget. How did that happen? Again, I haven't been part of those negotiations on appropriations or budgets or debt ceilings. We need a far stronger fiscal conservative approach toward pushing back on the free spending Democrats.